Hey guys, and in this part we are talking about the if statement, and it consists of three parts: the condition and the true part and the false part. This is the if expression. This is called the expression to check whether this one is true or it's not true or it's false. If the expression, for example, we already have a variable which its name is score. If score is greater than 50, what's going to happen? Execute this statement, those statements which is between those two brackets. Else, so if it's not true, come to execute this one. So it's, for example, we've got this flowchart. If the score is greater than 50, this is going to be translated to this code in the C++ programming language. You are going to write the code in C++ in this way. So the first part is called the true part. So if this condition is true, this part of the if is going to be executed. If not, if this one is false or else, this one is going to be executed. If it's false, this one is going to be executed, and it skips this one. Okay, so let's evaluate it. This one is called the condition. This one is called the true part, or it's this one, grade equals to pass, and this one equals to the false part. Okay, so if the condition evaluates to false, if this condition is false, it skips this part of the code. It directly comes to this part because the condition is false. And sometimes there may not be any false part. Now what happens here, the else part is omitted or is removed. For example, we can say if attendance is less than 0.8, exam grade equals to fail. So we don't have the else part, or we don't have the false part like this one, the flowchart. If attendance is less than 0.8, if it is true, come to execute this one, this statement. But if it's not, do nothing, just go to the other steps of your program. And this is very important in if statement. And what is it? If the true part or the false part is only one statement, look, this one is one statement and this one is one statement, then you can remove those two brackets. For example, if the score is greater than 50, execute this part which is between those two brackets, else execute this part. So it can be written like this way. We can omit or we can remove those brackets, because and in this case, when we have only one statement, this one is going to be executed. But if we had another another statement after this one, it would be executed if even the condition is not true. But this one, this omitting the brackets method, is true only if we have one statement. Okay, so we have one statement here for the true part, and we've got one statement for the false part, so we can omit the brackets. And sometimes we may have more than one if and else statement. So what are you going to do? For example, this one, if the score is greater than 90, then the grade is A. Now we have got some other possible solutions, some other possible options, such as, for example, if the score is greater than 75, the grade is B. If the score is greater than 60, the grade is C, and so on. So how we can implement it using the programming? If the score is greater than 90, so it's going to be in the true part, letter dash underscore grade equals to A. Else, so this part is the else, this no is the else, but we have to write if again. Why? Because we have got another if shape here, another if statement. We need to check for the further values, and you can say if score is greater than 75, the grade is going to be B. Else, if score is greater than 60, this is going to be executed. Else, if the score is greater than 50, this one is going to be executed. Otherwise, the last else doesn't have any if, so you don't have any if shape here, so you don't have any other if here. So what is going to be printed, what's going to be executed for the last part, which you don't have any condition, just if any of those of the above is not true, so what is going to be executed? This one is going to be executed. Letter grade equals to f. So let's have a look closer, and this is the previous example. This is the if. Okay, if true, this one is executed, else it comes to those points. Okay, so in this point we got some some other further ifs like this one. So this is the true part, this is the false part, and furthermore in that false part we are evaluating more conditions. Okay, and this is the true part, and else we got some other statements and conditions over there. So look, this is the else part, or this is the false part, this is the true part. So we've got three different forms of if statements. So if the condition is true, execute this statement, and this one is the same. We may have more than one statement, so we need to put them between brackets, and they are called compound statements. So in this part we don't have any else, this part we don't have any else, but there may be some point that you need to evaluate both the true and the false conditions. So if the condition is true, execute those statements, which are called compound statements, and they are between brackets, else execute those statements. As we said before, if we got only one statement to be executed, whether the condition is true or false, we don't need to have those brackets. But I suggest, as I've experienced, it is better to write down or to use those brackets even if you have a single statement. So it's better to use it in order to not face some errors in your program. So as we said, a compound statement is one or more statements that are grouped together by enclosing them in brackets, such as this one. If value is greater than 0, see out value. Value is equals to value multiplied by 2. This is the new value, and this one is the old value, which is being given already by the program. So if the value is greater than 10, value equals to 10, come update value to 10 and see out value. So those are compound statements, but this one is a single statement. If this condition is true, this one is going to be executed. If it is false, this is not going to be executed, but this one is executed in both cases. Okay, because we don't have any bracket here, and only one statement is executed after the if. So this one is a single statement. This semicolon belongs to the if, and even you need to have it for the see out. And here we got another statement, and these are called compound statements, which consist of two single statements, as we described it before. And this is also very important in if statement. The condition must be placed in parentheses, like this one: if x greater than 0 and x smaller than 10. So this leads to show you some error. Why? Because the whole condition is not between parentheses. So what you can do, you need to put the left and the right parentheses in order to form or the group of the conditions together, in order to form them together. So this is very important, to put or place all the condition inside two parentheses. So for example, if x is greater than 0 and x smaller than 10, and those brackets for the whole condition, and then see out x. So this is going to be syntax error. But we've got some issues in if statement. We need to consider them, such as this one. For example, if we say if 2 smaller than x and x smaller than 9, and see out x. Let's this is not the syntax error, it's a logical error. It gives you the wrong result. For example, let's say x must be what? Must be there must not be anything shown here, because 1 is not greater than what is called 2. Yeah, it's less than 9, but it's not greater than 2. So this one must not be shown, this one. But what is going to be shown here? That's right, 2 is smaller than 1. No. so it gives you false. First, this one is going to be evaluated. So the false is how much? 0. 0 is less than 9. Yes, true. So the true is going to be shown. And for example, let's say 5. And for what's going to happen? 2 is less than 5. True. True is less than 5. Yes. 1 is less than is less than 9. Yes. So in all the cases it shows the true, so it must not be written like that. This is not the syntax error, it is the logical error. So what are you going to do? You need to correct it in this way. If x greater than 2 and x less than 2, then cout x or print the x to the console. And we need to know that the condition evaluates the to the boolean value. So what do we mean by that? Most of the cases, or only in if only we've got two different cases in the if statement. What are the comparisons expressions, such as for example if a greater than 2 or less than or equal or not equal or stuff like that, and boolean expression whenever we are having some boolean expressions such as be and false or stuff like that. So the result is not going to be boolean, it's going to be typecasted to boolean, like this one. This is not boolean. Int n equals to 0. If n is true or false, n is false. Why? Because it is already 0, so this is going to be skipped. It goes to the false part. Okay, so what if is false, n is false, yeah, so it comes to this part, and what is going to be printed? No is going to be printed. So you need to know that in every time the if evaluates the boolean value to check whether it is true or false. Okay, so it's not a boolean, it is an integer, but it's going to be typecasted to boolean. N is 0, so it's going to be false, and the output is going to be the else part or the false part, which is no. In this example we have int n equals to 0 if n plus 1, so it's not a boolean, but it evaluates to boolean. So n is 0, that means it's false, but 0 plus 5 is going to be 5, and 5 is true, so this condition is true. What's going to happen? This part is going to be executed, so the output is going to be yes, right? And this one is also very important, this example. For example, we say int x equals to 0 if x equals to 0. This is not the the checking the condition or comparison or stuff like that. This one is assignment. Okay, this one is assignment. We are assigning the value of x to 0. For example, if we said x equals to 1, in this case x became 0. So this is the assignment. In order to compare two values, you need to put double assignment. Okay, so x equals to 0. If x equals to 0, that means the value inside here, inside this condition, is going to be 0. That means it is false, it's not true. If it was true, this one is going to be executed, but now it is false, and this part is going to be executed. Okay, the output is no. And in this example we have int y equals to 5. If y equals to 10, it is the assignment, so y is going to be updated to 10, and 10 is true, only the 0 is false. So if it is true, this part of the code is executed, so the output is going to be yes. Okay, great. So we've got this example as well. Int y equals to 1 if y equals to 5, that means it's not a comparison. Y equals to 5, it forces the y to be 5. Okay, but what is inside this condition? True. 5 is inside this condition, and what is going to be the value of y? 5. So this condition is true, and we are printing out what? Y, and the value of y became 5 here, and the program will show us 5. Another issue to be considered is arises when we are using the boolean operator, not boolean operator, which is this symbol escalation mark. For example, we are saying int n equals to 5, and n is 5 right now, if not n greater than 9. So How much is the n? 5. This one is, the things in programming language starts from left to right. So the first thing inside this condition is going to be evaluated is this not n. N is true, okay? It typecasted this one to boolean. N is 5, it is true, but not n is going to be false, right? N is 5, that means it's true. And not n is going to be false. True, the complement of true is false, and false is going to be typecasted to integer in order to be compared to this 9 with this 9. So 0, it's false is 0, this part is false. 0 is greater than 9, no, so this condition is going to be false because 0 is not greater than 9. The condition is false, and this one is going to be skipped. It comes to execute the false part. Okay, let's do it in the other form of the expression. Let's say int n equals to 5, and then we are evaluating what is inside those two brackets. We say not what is inside those two small brackets. So n is 5. 5 is greater than 9, no, that means this part is false. Okay, so n greater than 9 or 5 greater than 9, so this part is going to be false. Okay, not false is going to be true. The complement of false is going to be true, so not false, so not false is going to be true. So what is inside this condition, or what is going to be the result of this condition? True. At the end, the result is going to be true. So if it is true, what is going to happen? This true part is going to be executed, and the output is going to be yes. So you need to know where to put the statements. Okay, you need to know where should we put the statements in order to make our program deliver the required functionality. For example, here we say if x is less than 3, see out this one, see out this one. This is having some problem. For example, if x equals to 1, 1 is less than 3, yes, so the yes is going to be printed, and it comes to the second line, this statement, it executes that one as well. So this is something problem inside programming. You need to consider it because this part is belonging to the if, but this part doesn't belong to the if. It executes every time because we hadn't put that part belongs to the if into in between two brackets. So but let's say x equals to 3. 3 is less than 3, no, this is false. This part becomes to the true part of the if, and we don't have the false part, so it skips this part, it executes this one. So for this case it's going to be no is going to be printed. But in order to correct this one, we need to put a blank line here, and in this case, if x, for example, let's say x equals to 1 is less than 3, yes, this one is going to be printed. Okay, and you need to indent the lines in in there must be, for example, those lines are indented together, but this one must be in this part because it is another statement which doesn't belong to the if, like this one. This is the correction. This one belongs to the if, but if you indent it to the left part, it's going to be saying, or it's going to be shown like it is another statement which doesn't belong to this if, and in this case it executes as the same as previous. And we've got this example as well. We say if x is less than y, see out x equals to y else, and those statements are executed. But this one leads to syntax error, so you need to know that whenever we have more than one statement in the if part, you need to put them into in between two brackets, or using compound statements. Okay, whenever we have more than one statement, we need to use compounds. And we say if x modulus 2 equals to 1, if x is less than 10, see out x. The example says print only those numbers which are less than 10 and they are odd. And for example, let's say x equals to 7. So what is going to happen? X modulus 2 is going to be 1. That's true. It comes to this part. 7 is less than 10. Yes, it prints the number. Okay. And let's say for example 11. Yeah, 11 modulus 2 is 1. 11 is less than 10. No. Okay, this one is not going to be executed. It comes to this part and it shows you the wrong number. And let's check for 12. 12 modulus 2 is what is 0, and it is this condition is going to be false because it is 0, it's not 1. So what happens? It doesn't come to this if and else, so nothing is going to be printed because this else belongs to this if. Why? Because we haven't put those things into in between two brackets. So let's say the correction is going to be like this, using those brackets. If this condition is true, then come to execute those. So if this one is false, then comes to the false part, which is the else, and prints the wrong number. What is what the example says, otherwise print the wrong number. But in this case, if it was 12 or any other number, right, like 14, what's going to be printed? Nothing, and this is incorrect, logically incorrect. What is the null statement? Null statement are those statements which they don't do anything. Whenever you put this semicolon here in front of the if or at the end of the if statement, so this is representing the null statement. So if the condition is true or false, it has nothing to do. This part is not going to be belonging to the if statement. So you need to remove that semicolon because this one makes the condition as a null statement, which we refer to nothing to do, and this one is no longer belongs to that. If whether this condition is true or false, this one is going to be executed, so the output always going to be yes. Another example of null statement, we have this null statement here. So if this condition is true, it comes to execute this one. If it's not true, it comes to the else, but else is a null statement, so this part doesn't belong to the else. Let's see what happens. Take some examples. Let's say x equals to 5. 5 is less than 3. No, so this is not going to be executed. It comes to the else. So if it's false or it's true, this one is going to be executed. This is not belonging to the else. Let's take another number which is less than 3. Yeah, x is less than 3, so 1 is less than 3, right? So what is going to be the output? 1 is less than 3. This is true. This one is going to be printed, which is yes. And line, that means go to the next line. So it comes to the else. The condition was not false, it was true. This one is executed, but because of this semicolon, it makes the else a null statement, and this part is no longer belonging to that else, and this one is going to be printed whether the condition is true or false. So it was true, the condition, and it printed the yes. So it comes to the else. This is the null condition, which it has nothing to do in this program, and it prints the no, and this is a logical error in your program. And this is the simplification of if statements. If we had this if statement, if a is not 0, that means if a is not false, so you can say if a is true. If a is greater than 0 or a is less than 0, that means if a is not a 0, so that means if a is true. But when we say if a is false or a is 0, what we can say if not a, that means if not a is true. So a is false, not false is going to be true. So you can simplify those things to this one and that one to this one. And we have this example using the simplification of the if statement. So the original one was like this one: if n modulus 2 equals to 1, see out and then print that number in order to print only the odd numbers. But we can also say if n remainder modulus 2, that means if the result of this one is going to be 1, then print it. and for the even numbers as well. If n modulus 2 equals to 0, that means if not n modulus 2 or n modulus 2. So if it is 0 and this escalation mark makes it true, so if this one is true, then print the number which is the even number. So even we can represent the if statement in this way as well. Let's say this flowchart we have, if a equals to b, if it is true, c minus minus decrement c by 1, if it is false, increment c by 1. So what is going to be written inside the code, or the simplifying if statement? So the first part, which is the if, we just write in, whatever is inside the bracket as it is. Then to evaluate the true and the false parts, we need to put this question mark. The first part is going to be the true part. Whatever you want to be executed, which statement you want to be executed, you need to put it right after the question mark, and those 2 points separates the true part to the with the false part. So if it is true, this one is going to be executed, but if this one is false, this one is going to be executed. And you can instead of the other ways of writing if, you can use this one. This is an example. So the syntax is like this: if the condition is true, so you are writing the condition here, if this condition is true, this one is going to be executed, and if it is false, this one is going to be executed. Let's say p equals to if p less than 5, if for the true part this one is going to be executed, for the false part this one is going to be executed. So you can say if p is less than 5, this is the condition, if p is less than 5. If it is true, p equals to q plus 1. If it is false, p equals to 5. So this p takes the result of this condition altogether.